everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Imagine 2021 day session with our very own alumnus, Kevin McMahon. This will be one of the many day sessions offered to students this week during the Imagine 2021 program, sponsored by the President's Office, Career Services, and Oswego Alumni Association. My name is Nirdishta Ratsapkota, and I'm a senior with a double major in interaction design and journalism and a minor in creative writing. I'm currently the PR and marketing intern for Career Services and a village community associate for Res Life and Housing. So far, Imagine 2021 has really helped me with building my professional skills, and networking that I've been able to do has been really helpful since I graduated in May and I need all the help that I can get. The session held today kicks off week 4 of the Imagine 2021 program, which is a 5-week program focused on giving students and the class of 2020 the chance to explore career paths, find jobs or internship opportunities, network with alumni, and more. Check out the website for the details. The link is in the chat. And if you complete 3 items on the weekly checklist, you will be eligible for the drawing at the end of the week. The direct link to the checklist is also going to be in the chat. And now I am so excited to tell you all about today's speaker, Kevin McMahon. Kevin offers a unique set of skills to leaders and boards in the engineering and construction industry, having led a management buyout at Edwards & Kelsey, achieving superior returns on equity following the LBO through a pragmatic strategic plan focused on profitability, growth, and capital efficiency. Building on this experience as CEO and chairman of a privately held company, Kevin became a senior executive with a major P&L responsibility at one of the largest public engineering and construction firms in the world, Jacobs. Kevin is well known and active in the industry as a member of MOLS, past president of Design Professionals Coalition, and board member of the Construction Industry Roundtable. He has an MBA from Seton Hall University, where he received the Paul Stillman Leadership Award. He received a BS from the State University of New York at Oswego in business economics. Kevin has acquired and integrated approximately 25 firms and sold once. He's adept at developing pragmatic strategic development and performance improvement options, as well as creative solutions to recurring problems. Kevin resides in New Jersey with his wife and has 2 children living in Manhattan. And with that, please join me in welcoming Kevin McMahon.
Thank you, Neera. And it's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to talk to some old colleagues and new friends. Hopefully I'll get to meet from Oswego. My purpose here today is to take you through my career journey and describe my career in the consulting engineering business, and hopefully give you some insights into what I believe for your major is something that you should take a look at for your career aspirations. Neera went through my background. Just briefly to summarize it, Edwards & Kelsey was a small engineering firm that I became CEO of, and I'll tell you a little bit in a second about that journey. And then became a group vice president or group president of the infrastructure business with Jacobs. So it was a nationwide business with 50 or 60 offices throughout the country, and required a lot of travel and a lot of different projects, which I'll explain. Currently, I'm the founder of 2 consulting firms. One is called McMahon Siegel Group, which is a group that I founded with a friend of mine who was a CEO of another engineering firm. And we do a lot of training and industry outreach programs and strategic assessments for engineering firms primarily. And then the other firm I founded is just my own consulting business, McMahon Advisory Group, where I offer services to the companies primarily as either a strategic advisor or a board member. Currently on 4 private company boards. Teresa, next slide. A little bit of my background, and one of the things I want to highlight to everyone is a lot of life as you get out into your career is just taking advantage of opportunities and be willing to take a risk. I think that's critical, particularly in the younger years as you start to try to figure out where you want to end up. So I graduated from Oswego in 1978. I know for some of you that seems like 100 years ago. It was only probably 50 or so, but great experience. Tons of snow back then. We used to have lots of concerts, went to in Syracuse and Rochester. Saw Billy Joel at the Laker Fieldhouse. Worked at Johnson at the dining hall near Johnson, and regs. So had a great experience in Oswego, loved it. Got out of school with a business degree and economics minor, and became a CPA in 1980. Took the CPA exam and passed it. And I was working in public accounting, which is sort of the accounting equivalent of the consulting engineering business. Then took a job with one of my clients as a really young person. I was like 24 years old, as the CFO of a small company that wanted to go public. So that happened through a lot of trials and tribulations. And so I was a CFO of a public company in my early and mid 20s. That company was in telecommunications. I learned a lot about a lot of different things beyond accounting, learned a lot about business and operations, and found I had a very sincere interest in operations. For a lot of reasons, I joined a small engineering firm in 1991. I left the telecommunications company. That company was based in New Jersey and had 250 people, and in 4 offices in Minnesota, Boston, New York, and New Jersey. About 5 years later, I became the president. A friend of mine who I became quite close with at the firm was a new CEO. So we were both 2 new people to our position. I was still about 35 years old. And we decided to do a leverage buyout of the company, which was privately owned, but had been migrating towards an ESOP, which is a pension type fund approach towards ownership of a private company. 2 years later, unfortunately, my partner died of a heart attack, and I became the CEO, and we started to really grow the company. Right then, we went out and bought a number of firms, and I'm talking real small companies at the time, 15, 20 people, with what I call financial engineering, a lot of using companies' own money almost to buy them. But we were able to grow that business to 1,200 people, and it was quite the experience. We had a lot of fun, brought a lot of people into ownership. Ownership at the time early on was met with a personal guarantee. So we had to get a bank loan. And for that bank loan, about 20 of us had to sign personal guarantees, which meant basically putting the house on the line with the bank. So there was quite a lot of risk, which ownership demands in private firms, but also can provide a lot of rewards. So we were, as an example, named New Jersey Company of the Year in 2002. We've received industry-wide recognition as a hot firm. We grew a telecommunications business from 10 people to over 300 people, had an office in Holland. We went from just being a New Jersey-based firm with New York and Boston and Minnesota to as far out as Texas, Florida, Ohio, Chicago. So it became quite a success and had a lot of fun. Jacobs, a major firm, 70,000 people, came after us many times to acquire us, and they wanted myself and our management team to be in charge of their infrastructure business. So because we were going to take a step forward in terms of management responsibility, and some of our partners were getting older and wanted to cash out of ownership, it sort of met a need at the time, and we joined Jacobs in 2007. We had a great time there. I was president of the infrastructure group for about 7 or 8 years. And then in 2000, which we grew to 3,000 people, and that became a nationwide situation. So I was really traveling from Monday through Thursday, running a business that did a lot of different projects across the country and many different things, which I'll explain. Then in 2013, an opportunity came up for us to help assimilate a major Australian acquisition with the Asia business that we inherited. So I went over and lived in Shanghai and ran a business that was throughout Asia in Philippines, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. And that was actually a lot of fun for a couple of years, and got that business fixed up. And then, basically for a lot of reasons, primarily I was over there pretty much by myself. My family didn't really come with me for a couple of reasons. One, my 2 kids were in college, and second, my wife came over a couple of times, and then I started traveling around brought her once, and she said, "This is just crazy, flying around Asia with you." So she bailed on me and went home, went back to New Jersey. But that's the way it goes in the big leagues. So next slide, Krisha. So what is the consulting engineering business? So there are a lot of engineering projects out there that need firms of engineers to do. And so in my career, these are just some of the ones I've been involved in. There are a heck of a lot more out there. And with an electrical engineering computer major, there are so many opportunities for you folks to get involved in it. I'm just going to highlight some of them, all of which have some applicability. Primarily in the early days, I was involved in the highways and bridge field, and highways has what we call intelligent transportation systems, which early days was just the first electronic signage on roadways alerting the public as to incidents ahead. Many major bridges have, believe it or not, homeland security devices and monitoring systems on bridges. A lot of folks don't know that. So that's a lot of electrical engineering and systems engineering. What's going on in transportation nowadays with autonomous vehicles will drive a lot of electrical and systems engineering on the new highways of the future. On the rail side, we did a lot of commuter rail work in Chicago, in New York, in Boston, in New Jersey, major urban areas, including new light rail projects in Denver and LA. And all of those projects have control systems that monitor signals, rail crossings, and the like. And there's a lot of opportunities for automation systems. Aviation, the same. There's air fueling systems, air lighting systems, runway nav systems, air traffic control systems, all require some automation. And then marine and traffic. On the utility side, ran programs in Chicago and LA. A lot of things in life on this page are driven by government regulations. So in California, there was an explosion out in California in a town called San Bruno. And that drove a lot of regulations on the gas utility side to check out gas lines, make sure they've been tested. And a lot of utilities did not have records about testing. So there was $1 billion program to create some new electrical and gas utility lines in California, as well as change out the gas lines in Chicago, which were 100 years old. In the communications business, what's going on right now in 5G has a lot of opportunities for electrical and systems engineers. I got involved in telecommunications in the mid-90s when it started to boom with digital PCS. We went from 20 people through a lot of creativity to, as I mentioned, 300, including an office in the Netherlands, which was a lot of fun to visit for a number of years. And so that communications business is dynamic and continues to grow and continues to migrate into new things. On the building side, believe it or not, there's a lot of systems going on, particularly now with the pandemic. A lot of high rises are changing out their systems to be what we call smart building applications, whether it's touchless technology, air filtration systems, new HVAC systems and the like, as well as what's going on in retail to keep folks safe. So a lot of opportunities there. What I'm involved right now in a company in California does a lot of tanks and wastewater treatment plants, which have a ton of applications for folks in your majors. And one thing I'll mention, just from more of an interest point of view, this oil and gas side, geothermal. We had a major client, Chevron, that pulled a lot of geothermal out of the fields in Indonesia. So visiting geothermal sites in Indonesia and putting together systems to connect that heat source was quite an interesting project. So as you can see, the dynamics of what you folks are involved in and what the needs are in this consulting engineering business are so broad-based. I could have 3 or 4 more slides here. Next slide, Carisha. So what are people do in consulting engineering? What are most of the participants in it? As a graduate of Oswego, you're going to have probably two or three simple choices. One is to go work for government. One is to work for a private company. and another one is to work for a consulting engineering firm. I'm here to kind of contrast them a little bit, but mainly focus on consulting engineering since that's my background. But private companies have lots of opportunities now, what's going on, whether it's automotive, automation, robotics companies, technology companies, lots of different things going. The difference is both offer career opportunities. The consulting engineering side offers, generally speaking, more broad-based opportunities. Going to a private company, it would probably be more focused. Both are great, both offer very lucrative futures, I think, but both offer a little bit different work experience. On the consulting engineering side, as I mentioned, so a lot of those projects involve a electrical and automation focus, but it's not the entire project. You get involved in a project from soup to nuts. Versus working for a private company, your work would tend to be more focused and of a specialty nature, which would be great if you're really interested in doing that. But if you're interested in getting exposed to more broad-based projects, it may be consulting engineering for you. Probably more opportunity to not just sit at your desk in consulting engineering. A lot of opportunities exist to travel, visit different project sites, get involved in project management, because the consulting engineers typically take on projects as opposed to private companies maybe working on products or systems that just get enhanced all the time, and there's not a natural stop and start date to it. Enhancement oriented, as I mentioned, in private companies, and consulting is project oriented. So there's careers just in project management, in selling, in being a principal in a consulting firm and owning a piece of it, in new technologies. There's a lot of opportunities, and out there and working for a consultant, you would not be obsolete because they continually adapt to new technologies. Next, Carisha. So a little bit about the consulting engineering business. There's literally over 100,000 firms that exist. Now, that's a lot, considering I worked for one that was 250 in the start, and then it ended at 1,200, and then the next one I worked at was 70,000 people. But a lot of them have one or two people, and so that's how you get to 100,000. But it does offer you, so there's a host of firms in between, a couple people and, well, let's say 1,000. There's thousands and thousands of companies. It offers you opportunity to be an owner, whether it's your own small business. I'm not saying right after you get out of college, but at some point in your life, or you're a partner or a shareholder in a larger business. A lot of what I do now is advise companies who are anywhere from 40 or 50 people to 500 on how to grow their business, how to make a little bit more money, how to make more money for their owners. I can tell you from firsthand experience, it's usually a pleasant opportunity to participate in something that you have a piece of, and also you can set the destiny of that enterprise. There's a lot of different career opportunities, and I'd say clearly there's a shortage right now of folks that do electrical and automation services in the consulting engineering business. There is a shortage, and I don't see that shortage being filled anytime soon. As I mentioned, it's project oriented, so and a lot of it involves being a piece of a larger project, providing a service that others might be providing the service to, whether it's a bridge, a highway, a pharma plant in China, or a new automobile plant in South Carolina. So lots of different things out there, lots of firms to tackle and see if you're interested in them joining you. Generally, there's three tracks. There's technical, where you can be an engineer, quote unquote, for your career, which is a very fun thing to do if that's what you're interested in. A lot of folks start off in the technical track early on, and then develop an interest in either project management or just general management or sales. I can tell you, as spending a career in the consulting business, we focus a lot on sales because we sell the next project, and as in any business, sales are very, very important. So one of my friends from high school actually ran into him. I didn't even know what he was doing, and I ran into him at a meeting 20 years later, and he was in sales and consulting engineering. And there's opportunities throughout the country. Wherever you want to be. graduated from Oswego and immediately went down to New Jersey for a couple of reasons. One, I just felt that there was more broad-based jobs down in the New York City area, so I kind of went back there. And but whether it's in Oswego, in Syracuse, in Western New York, in New York City, or in Florida, or Chicago, or Texas, there's jobs throughout this country, and your skills will be in demand. So. Next slide. Yeah. So let's break down a little bit of what is in consulting and engineering, the industry. There's large firms, and on the left, multifaceted firms, and they do many, many different things. But they may do transportation, autonomous vehicles, smart highways, rail system control centers, airfield lighting as an example. Even in tunnels, there's things called tunnel ventilation systems that are a skill set to just take the exhaust out of the tunnel. So there's so many applications out there that are surprising when you start thinking about it. On the water side, there's control systems for wastewater treatment plants as an example, a big enterprise, or desal plants in California, creating more drinking water. Cybersecurity exists at all major bridges and tunnels and electrical utilities. One of my former clients was the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, the tunnel that connects Virginia and Maryland. That tunnel, for instance, had a lot of cybersecurity on it. And there's homeland security applications. There's applications for many, many different things, whether it's manufactured plants or just automation plants, et cetera. There are firms out there called MEP, or specialty firms. MEP stands for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And that's what those firms generally are known by. They're range anywhere in size from 5 or 10 people to 500 or 1,000 folks. They have a lot of emerging things that are happening. Data centers are an example, and lots of different applications for electrical and automation skills. As I mentioned, right now going on in this pandemic, there's lots of commercial buildings. Been talking to some of the major commercial real estate owners, and they are enhancing their buildings just to keep first in class, to keep those buildings leased. So there's lots of stuff going on in the major urban areas with buildings. Lots of automation, robotics going on in the United States. One of the reasons why our productivity keeps going up is because of automation and robotics, and it's a great field to get into. Spent some time in the pharma business, as I mentioned, in Asia. Lots of things happening, obviously, right now with vaccines, but pharma and biotechnology have a lot of future, a lot of automation, a lot of cutting edge things. We were involved in a plant called Manufacturing Plant of the Future in Singapore that won some awards worldwide. That was very, very interesting to be involved in. And also on the healthcare side, coordinating systems, networks, just all the things that go on to administrate the healthcare network and keep track of where you are opportunities for you to consider.
So Kevin, we have a question.
Okay.
So what would you say is the biggest impact COVID has had in your field of work?
Okay, the biggest field that is the biggest impact that COVID has had right now in the field of work is working from home. Just like I think a lot of students are working from home or working from the dorm room, almost all the engineering firms have adopted a work from home model over the last year. It kind of threw everything they do upside down. So traditionally, most engineering firms would have an office or offices. People would go into the office. They'd sit in a group, of mechanical engineers sit in one place, electrical in another. They'd coordinate their projects, and they'd put the plans together. And then you visit the clients don't visit you for project meetings. But the COVID situation caused almost within a couple of days, everybody to put that on hold, start working from home. And for the most part, engineering firms are actually doing better profit-wise over the last 6 to 9 months than normal, which was surprising to me. One of the reasons is there's no travel costs, and people have been just what we call burning up the backlog, working from home, not really traveling, going anywhere. But that has a detriment too with client contact and things of that nature. So there's an expectation that by somewhere between July 4th and Labor Day of 21 that people will start going back to the office. For those graduating, the interesting thing is, and I think this is a little bit more for consulting engineers than perhaps private company engineers, but it could be the same, where the expectation is that they'll allow employees to work from home 2 days a week to 3 on average going forward versus getting into the office. So for folks that work in major cities where it is a big effort to get into work, let's say in New York City, it's a major, I think, enhancement going forward. Yeah. So in summary, the consulting engineering business, I think, is something that, if it's not on your radar, it should be. Starting off in consulting engineering, I think there's jobs out there. They're in different locations, and a career beginning in consulting engineering will not preclude you from maybe figuring out what it is exactly you like about engineering, or about different fields that are out there, and then picking a specialty area and going to work for a company. It doesn't, you're not boxed in. And one of the things I remember when I was your age is I had a very limited knowledge of what was out there. So this is one thing that you can consider, and it may be just a learning experience. There's also opportunities to own a piece of a firm, create a firm, participate in that, get involved in sales, own a business if you're interested in that. So it offers a number of different career tracks than just doing engineering, solely. So it's something to consider. Electrical and computing, it's at the cutting edge. I can't tell you enough how every firm I'm involved with has a need for electrical and control systems and automation engineers. So it's something that I see getting worse, not better. And because the need is so dramatic, and something that you should consider, in this field. Applications run the gamut. Some of our folks actually over the years sometimes go work for clients, and those clients might be in the private sector or the government. So there's lots of career opportunities that exist. And actually just learning how to be a great project manager is a skill set in the consulting business that is in short supply. And what does a project manager do? A project manager runs a multi-discipline project, but has the skills to coordinate the budget, communicate needs, fix problems, negotiate with clients. So it's a unique skill set that some of you out there have and would really enjoy doing. Consulting business offers you the opportunity to be broad-based. And as I mentioned, early in your career, I'm always a fan of, learn as much as you can about what's out there before you decide to specialize in anything down the line. Got a question from Laura. It's asking about higher degrees. In the engineering business, there's an opportunity to become a professional engineer, a PE, which is a designation that you may or may not have enough educational background to get right now, after graduating, or may require a master's degree. I went for my MBA actually at night when I was working, sitting at the kitchen table with 2 kids driving me crazy, but somehow I got through that. And so actually going for a master's degree downstream in something that could get you a little bit more specialty skills is something that also that's out there that I think you could do even if it's at night over a 2 or 3 year period. Near?
So, Kevin, there's another question that's asking, was consulting something you always thought you would be doing with your degree, or were you confused?
I would say I was confused. Back when I was in college, as I mentioned, public accounting was, I guess, the version of consulting that I'm talking about. It's, there are accounting firms filled with people that do projects called audits or tax work or things like that. And that's what I was pushed into. And in hindsight, I'm not even sure why myself and a couple of my friends in the accounting class decided to do that. Didn't really know what public accountants did. And I'm sure a lot of folks that will be listening to this program don't know what consulting engineers do. If you just Google consulting engineering or electrical engineering firms, you will come up with tons. So you can look at my old firm Jacobs's website, for instance, and get fascinated with the amount of technology that they're involved in. It's enormous, and that alone could whet my appetite. But I didn't really understand what consulting was. It sounds, the word consulting sounds a little, different. It sounds more, get your head around management consulting, which this is not. This is, I have a problem, I need a project to fix it, whether it's a bridge, a manufacturing plant. I need to be automating something, and I go out and solicit, proposals from different engineering firms who give me their solutions. I pick one, and voila, that engineering firm has a project. And oftentimes, the engineering firm will oversee the project through design. It may actually be planning up front. So there may be just some consultation, some planning of the project. Once a solution is spec'd, then you design it. And then oftentimes, you may be involved in the construction or the integration of the systems of that particular project through what's called construction management or commissioning of a system or cutting over a system. So you can observe the whole project from soup to nuts, and be involved in more industries than one too. So it's the more I got into the consulting engineering business, the more I really came to love it, and would highly recommend it for a lot of reasons. The camaraderie in the firms was huge. They're really collegial places to work. The work is interesting. The work's on the front page of the paper. Things that are going on in society drive, whether it's environmental, climate change is a big thing. I didn't even mention climate change, but there's a lot of coastal restoration projects, wind farms, just wind farms alone have a lot of electrical and automation opportunities. So whatever's going on in the world, consulting engineering firms are participating in. So it's a very cool industry from that perspective.
And another question we have is, what advice would you give to students who are looking to start a business, especially during such uncertain times as we are experiencing right now?
Yeah, I think my uncertain times are very very troubling, right? Because we don't know the future. It's amazing that we got through it as well as we have from an economic perspective. My advice, because the consulting engineering business is still doing well, is to get into the business for let's just say a handful of years. Raise your hand, try to get as broad-based knowledge as you can, figure out what intersects at the junction of opportunity and your specific interest and skills. You may find that you've got an interest in certain aspects of engineering, and as I learned over the years, if the more things you get involved in, they actually interested in, which sounds pretty simple, you'll actually do better at it. If you're really not that interested and want to really learn about something, you're not going to be that great about it. So I would spend 5 or 6 years in this business, and at that young age, relatively speaking, you could be experienced enough to start thinking about creating your own business. One thing I didn't mention, starting your own engineering business, particularly if you have some money saved up that you can, exist and get by for, let's say, 6 months, is not a heavy lift. Really, all you need right now is a computer and a kitchen table, and you're in business. And I'm sure, with what you're learning about marketing and things like that, it's an easier business capital-wise to start than a lot of other businesses.
What are some challenges that arise in your work, and what do you enjoy the most about what you do?
Okay. One thing I didn't mention is employees. People are any firm's greatest asset, whether you have 1 or 2 or 100. And managing people is not easy. So learn the hard way how to manage people, which is, boils down to just be honest, be transparent, communicate, and, look to include folks in a team atmosphere as much as possible. But learning how to, manage and get the most out of people takes a little bit of skill set. I came to really enjoy that the most, and the camaraderie of, when I was in Asia, for instance, I had a management team that was an Australian person, a British person, a Chinese person, a Thai person, and somebody from Malaysia. And it was just so much fun interfacing with those folks. I learned that people are the same all over, and we had as much fun having fun as we did doing the work, which was, looking back on it, one of the best things that happened in work.
And so another question that we have is, what specific tips or pieces of advice would you give to students who are considering this field, and stuff that will help prepare them to get a leg up upon graduation?
Yeah, I would, that's a very good question. Yeah, I would think that, nowadays, one of the things we didn't have an advantage of, back when I went to school is the internet. There's so much knowledge out there in the internet. One, I would do some searching on the consulting engineering business. Two, I would do some searching on what trends are emerging, which I think most of the students probably know: automation, robotics, systems, climate change. What is, biotechnology. A lot of the things that are happening in this world are going to be around for the next 20 or 30 years. What's your interest? So what your interest is, if you can narrow it down to even 3, 4, or 5 things from 20 things, then search private companies that operate in that space, and also search consulting engineering firms. A lot of companies now on either consulting or private side will have career days. It's kind of easy to reach into HR in these companies, start a dialogue with them about what folks do, see if you could just talk for 10 minutes. You're interested about working for them upon graduation. Is there somebody you could talk to? And it's amazing how nowadays a lot of people are interested in reaching out and connecting with people, particularly people that show an interest and an aggressiveness about their particular company. So I would go that route. First, formulate a little bit a narrowing of what you're interested in, and then try to do a pros and cons of either working for a private company or a consulting engineer.
And do we have any other questions? Just feel free to drop it either in the chat or in the Q&A section. Well, it looks like that might be the end of our questions. Thank you so much to everyone for participating, and for Kevin for and to Kevin for inspiring us. We hope to see you tonight at the Imagine 2021 day session with Nina House at 7 p.m. See the link in the chat, and I hope you guys have a great evening.
Thank you so much, and good luck, everyone.